Curling now enters the Sports Weekend spotlight.
Hi again, curling fans. We've hit the end of the road, the end of the season, a long granite odyssey. Let us know where you're tuning in from tonight, and look who's here for the final show. Joe, Mike, great to see you. You're going to be along for the ride, and of course, noticeably absent Colleen, who's under the weather and tells me she's tuning in and taking notes. She told me she's watching all of us, so she's going to have coaching notes for all of us.
Nobody needs that kind of pressure.
Call, we love you. Take care. We're thinking of you and sending you good vibes. But Joe and Mike, here we are. A little bit of snow and hail in Toronto today. It felt more like curling weather than anything, really, Mike.
It did, and it's awful. Yeah, why would it's almost May, Devin? We're golf season is upon us right here. So
Right.
Anyway.
Joe, you were broadcasting this year. You were part of the curling world this year. Maybe just some quick thoughts as we head towards the last event of the season. Some thoughts that stood out to you.
Yeah, I think it's been a long year. Playing through it, it felt long, but also on the outside looking in, it's a big season, and especially that first year of the quad, seeing the teams with their new lineups and seeing how that all came together. And I think the biggest take home for me, just as a spectator, the broadcasting side, is just the quality of curling is just so impressive worldwide now. And I think we're in for a really exciting next 3 years of this quadrennial.
No kidding. Of course, buckle up for all of that. The big prize 2026 in Italy. That's where the Olympics will be. We have David Murdoch, who will be on the show. I spoke with him earlier today from Scotland. It's late there, so we'll hear some thoughts from David and dissect what he said, because it was big news, of course, last week from Curling Canada. You had to read the press release a few times to sort of figure out what was going on. A lot of things going on there. But of course, guys, the World Curling Championships in Korea right now, mixed doubles and senior worlds going on. At the Olympic venue, 2018, of course. Mike, we know it well. Joe, you know it well. We all know it well. We spent a lot of time at that place. Mike was telling me probably the coldest rink he's ever broadcasted in.
By far, it was this jacket, a parka, a toque, and then the hood up, and then the headphones on top of all of that, and we were still freezing. And it was only, and I blame Hans Wuthrich, who's the ice maker. He had diverted all the air to the outside of the building, and we were at the very back row. Beautiful seating. We could see everything, which was great, but we were at the top row, right where the air was coming down on top of us. It was insane. And our colleague Kevin Martin was sitting 2 rows down with NBC in short sleeves. Right. So it made no sense. But anyway, it was a great building, and I'm sure there are a few teams there who are having some great memories.
No kidding. Let's take a look at the standings right now. Jennifer Jones and Brent Lang, of course, wearing the maple leaf once again at an international event. Midway point, really, of the round robin. So you have two pools of 10 teams, 20 teams in total. Canada at the top of the standings right now, 4-1 record. Estonia and Scotland also with 4-1 records. Joe and Mike, interesting to point out that Jennifer and Brent have played both of those teams, a win against Scotland in the opener and a loss against Culvey and Lille. And we know that is a powerhouse team because they were over here in the Super Series. They're good.
They're very good. Yeah, really good team. They actually won the Tour Championship at the end of the year. And they're a force to be reckoned with. And I'm excited for them, actually, because they're one of those countries that the mixed doubles is their best avenue into the Olympics. So I think I'm very happy for them. But, you got Bruce Mowat and Jen Dodds and Brent and Jen, of course, who are tied at the top. And there's a couple of teams right behind them, chasing them, who are also very good. So they have a bit of work to do yet before they make the playoffs.
Joe, you competed at a Worlds and you know these teams. And when I tweeted out the other day that Estonia had beaten Canada, some of the fans were going, Estonia? I think casual curling fans in this country might not realize how advanced in European countries, for example, the mixed doubles game is on the world stage.
Oh yeah, and once you start seeing teams that are solely dedicated to the discipline, like we said, we saw Estonia play in Canada and they won the event. It's the final series. So the pools are so lopsided. Oh, Colleen.
She couldn't stay away.
Stirring the pot. I love it so much. But the biggest change, I mean, when I played back in the day in 2017, was it was an open mixed doubles worlds. There was like 7 pools of whatever and 50 plus teams, and now it's 20, and you need to qualify to get in. So of course, every team is going to be a contender, and I think it's great to see Canada with a strong start. That helps so much, especially mixed doubles. But it's anyone's game once you get to the playoffs, and I think we're in for some really exciting curling.
Yeah, it is such a crapshoot sometimes when you get to those pressure-packed games in mixed doubles. It can be chaos. No lead is safe. Colleen, wonderful to hear from you. Let's look at those lopsided pools she's talking about, because you know she'd be telling us about that right now. So you have the Group B here with Japan, Norway, Switzerland, United States, and you see their records, and you compare that to Canada's pool, and I think Colleen might have a point.
Maybe. those I think Switzerland's won like I don't know how many of the last World Mixed Doubles Championships, so they're very good. The Hurlemans, right? That's a pretty darn good team. Japan's always tough, and yeah, they're if you don't know who the easy game is, you're it, right? Like that's the story, right? So one of those things where not mixed doubles isn't it's not even comparable to me to the other disciplines. It's just it's a little bit more up in the air, but somehow the cream always seems to rise to the top in all of the events. So yes, on paper you might say, okay, well, yeah, we got Bruce Mowat and Jennifer Jones and Estonia, that's on paper, they're not a tough team, right? You go Japan, Switzerland, who would you rather? Who would you rather play? I think it's a matter of opinion, and we know where Colleen falls on the scale here. So, I just think the teams are also good now. There are no easy spots in the draw. So you just have to play well.
You got to remember too, like for Estonia, this is their event of the year. Like they haven't played in the 4-person game all year long, so I think that plays a part too with whose gas tank is the fullest going into this thing. I mean, Jen and Brent, they went from players straight over there, right? A lot of these teams, Bruce Mowat won a world championship, played in a casual Grand Slam, and now he's playing in a mixed doubles championship, a world championship. Like that's a big deal, right?
To that point, there was a quote, Colleen told me she read it earlier today, that Bruce actually talked about the fact that he wishes he didn't play at the Slam right after the World Championship, because, I mean, we know they went there and lost, and they were probably just still soaking up the World Championship, but we always talk a lot about the jam-packed schedule. Interesting to note the Olympic champions from Italy with 3 losses right now. So that's
only half that team, though.
True.
So Stefania Constantini, but different partners. Sebastiano Arman he's no slouch. He's a fantastic player, but maybe a little bit of a magic lost, and we'll see. But he also came from the Slam as well, so maybe the travel's not easy.
We all have our own memories of that Olympic venue in Pyeongchang. We're going to bring on Kaitlyn Laws in a minute here, but we should also point out that the World Senior Championships are also taking place in Korea. The Canadian teams, Sherry Anderson out of Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. I love that. There she is, and what a champ she's been over all the years. Loves the game so much. Her Canadian rank 3-0. And they are 2-time world senior champions, had their streak broken last year. And Team Howard Radula out of Ottawa on the men's side, 1 loss so far. 24 men's teams competing at the senior world competition, and 14 women's teams. The playoff situation gets a little murky. I'll be tweeting about it and explaining it as the week goes along. You want to be in the top of the pools. That's as simple as it gets. Like I said, I had a chance to speak with David Murdoch, and I think everybody's really interested in hearing that conversation. I know you guys are as well. So let's throw it from me to me speaking to David and hear what he has to say. David, you've been a busy man. I understand you're back in Scotland and it's getting late there. So thanks for joining us. Wonderful to see you. I think it's been about a month since you've been the high performance director of Curling Canada. Some initial thoughts from you about what it's been like so far.
Yeah, thanks, Devin. It's obviously been a very busy month. So many people to meet, athletes, stakeholders, staff, board. So, I've been trying to get around as many people as I can, really trying to get some feedback and I get a good understanding of what's going on. You've got an outside perception, I think. Certainly I had from, my time as, in Scotland and coming over to events. But now, you start to really see what's happening and speaking to the right people. And hopefully, we can get some good solutions to a few of our problems.
The clock is ticking. I don't have to tell you in this Olympic quadrennial, and talk about being in the belly of the beast, a big announcement. I had to read the press release a few times, David, to take all the announcements in. So let's get into that. The most fascinating thing for me is your quote at the bottom of it, talking about making more space for Canada's elite curlers to focus on training and curling. Talk to me first about the space Curling Canada has created for curlers to actually curl and not be chasing those points they covet.
Yeah, I think when you look around now and you're starting to see what the rest of the world is actually doing, and certainly, I came from that in Scotland where there was a lot of emphasis on the daily training environment. So, from that point of view, there's a lot of work to be done there. I think whatever we can do in terms of hard work and training and trying to replicate competition and conditions, and just really learning what we do in competition and trying to apply it back into the training environment and flip it back out to see how we can make some gains. So there's a lot of work there. I think that's the important factor, is just how we can replicate some of those really good conditions in some of our facilities that we have around the country, and try and get some key staff there. And I know the teams want to work hard and see if we can, find those small gains.
You've been traveling and you have played all across Canada. You know the geographical scope of this country. And I think about the Scottish model, very centralized in the high performance training center there. Is that a challenge, David, when you think about centralization of athletes? I've heard rumblings that maybe there will be some hubs throughout Canada, but is that something you have to consider that can't be applied from the Scottish model, of course, to the Canadian model?
Yeah, for sure. There's obviously, it's a huge country, and it's very difficult to want to actually bring everybody to a centralized camp. I don't think that's really possible. But what we can do is maybe maximize some of the really good facilities we have across the country. I think from a provincial and territory standpoint, if we could get to somewhere where we have really good equipment and ice conditions and rocks all in some area that access, all the athletes can access, then I think that's going to bring everybody up just a little notch. Because I know from speaking to the athletes, that's something that they've been really crying out for. And if we can add in, a few layers of coaching and expertise within that, and really structure and periodize their seasons in a better way, so we know when to train, how to train, using the data that we have on each team and each athlete about how we're going to improve. I think that's the biggest point. How do we become better? And that's something we just really need to dial in and focus on.
Fascinating to see the changes to the Olympic trials. 8 women's teams, 8 men's teams, a best of 3 final, which will no doubt provide drama. But the sticking point, David, is, and the conversation, and I know you know this, has been the timing of it, asking Canadian curlers to continually peak. The timing didn't change. Why, and how much of a conversation and how much input did you have on that?
Yeah, we obviously had a lot of discussions with our stakeholders and their athletes. And, I think there was maybe a few comments around the timing of the event, whether it could be earlier. But the more we brought it earlier, the more difficult that became too, in terms of how do teams become ready, clashes with other events. I think what we can do, Devin, is actually just look at this from a different perspective, in that if we have everyone really ready and understanding what comes next, And by that, I mean, really dial into the week after the event finishes. What happens to the Olympic team? What do they need to do in terms of media? How do they recover? Where are we going to train? How are we going to train? Where the events are going to be that they need to prepare in the lead up to the Olympics for that. I think if we can really sit with all the teams that have qualified and set out a very clear goal, this is what it's going to look like. Here's how we're going to be ready. Here's going to be the preparation camp and be really ready for what we need to do next. I think that's the important part. So yeah, tough to schedule it perfectly, but we've got a lot of events that we have to sit in, and I think this is a good option still.
You have such a unique perspective in this role, David, because for years you were opposition number one, and I would imagine there might have been. I don't want to go as far as to say, and as we look at some of your playing days and stealing the hearts of Canadians, of course, with your world championship that nobody will ever forget, and what a moment that was for you. But this unique perspective of having gone up against Canada, maybe marveling at the fans and the system here, and now you're a part of it. How do you approach that lofty responsibility? I've always said curling fans are great in Canada until the teams are losing. There's pressure on the curlers in this country. How do you approach that?
Yeah, obviously it's curling's such a big thing in Canada. I think that what I noticed from being at the Briar was just the sheer scale of it. I've been to a couple of Briars before, but obviously coming into the role now and my job within that is so important. So, I really hope I can do the role justice. Speaking with Jerry Peckham, he's done an incredible job, and he's really helping me understand and transition into this job, because it is so vast and there's a lot of expectation on that. And he's been really helping me, embrace some ideas I have, and see if we can get some of those in place, and or how long it might take to implement some of those ideas. But yeah, it's the project really excited me. That was why I applied for it. I've always loved coming to Canada. My wife's Canadian. My kids are half Canadian, so it's a country I love as well. And the fact that curling's a mainstream sport there, it's just it's incredible. So I'm with you in those expectations.
No doubt, and I'm looking forward to documenting this journey as we move forward. Is this a time for panic for curling in this country? And I'll add a little more context. The junior teams were relegated, and fans aren't happy about that. They're concerned about the next gen and who are the next stars in this country. I also remind curling fans in this country, Canada and Switzerland are the only two nations to have medaled at Men's and Worlds this year. So reality check a little bit, but is there a level of panic or concern, David, about where we're at, and specifically when we look at the next generation of curlers in this country?
It's certainly not a case of panic. I think it'd be panic if we didn't have medals. And over the last few years, we've been consistently still getting medals. We still had an Olympic medal. We've still got World Championship medals. So I think there's a real positive there, and we can't forget that. I think Canada still has a bunch of talent. I think we'll continue to do well, but now's the time to really look at the future and just see what do we need to do so we make sure we stay up there. And it's going to be very hard to, the golden days of Canada winning, most events. That's always going to be challenging, but it's certainly something that we're going to strive for. That's our real North Star, where we want to get to. But what we need to just look at is just trying to maximize the amount of curlers and the potential that we have here. And I think by, just looking a little bit of some different aspects of training, some competition structure, slightly different focus of off ice and on ice, and how often we play and various aspects, then, I firmly believe we're always going to be up there, and hopefully we can really keep pushing for those Olympic medals.
Couple last questions, because I know you're a busy man. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about residency, because I tweeted out to the curling nation what they wanted me to ask you, and many of those questions had the word residency in it. What do you think of residency rules, and would you like to see any changes around it, because it's always a hot topic in this country?
Well, we've made some small changes already. You saw what was put out there from Curling Canada a few weeks back. And it's a difficult challenge, isn't it? We have the Brian and Scotties and the importance of those events and the pride that is in those events in terms of all the provinces and territories where they want to be represented. And across the country, we do have curlers that want to play, in a variety of different locations, and we're hoping that what we put out now can allow for that. Is it a perfect system? Maybe not, but we're living in the guardrails that we have, which is a lot of different provinces in a big country. So we've just to be mindful of how important these big events are for us. One, our tradition, and two, just the amount of money that is generated that is filtered back into the clubs and the young curlers across the country. So it's a fine balance, Delvin. There's not an easy solution to a lot of this, but I think it's a good solution. And for us, we certainly want curlers to have every opportunity going, and at the same time keep these traditions alive and keep as many people in the sport as we can, because it's kind of the strength and depth that's always led to just having such great chances and opportunities at world and Olympic events.
David, if we're talking after Italy in 2026, what will success under your reign with Curling Canada look like?
Well, that's going to be a tough one, isn't it? It's time will tell for sure. But I'm excited about what we can do. We've got a lot of great teams in the country at the moment. We've saw that over the last few events that we've got great potential. So, we won a medal in all three disciplines and wheelchair too. So 4 disciplines, actually 5 disciplines with mixed doubles as well. So there's a lot to achieve, and I think we're going to put all our efforts and all our time and focus and listen to our athletes and listen to our stakeholders and see what we can achieve.
Never a dull moment. So glad that you are wearing the maple leaf now, David. Have you found a home, by the way?
Not yet, but I will be homeless soon. We managed to sell our house while I was in Canada, so it's a step-by-step process. We're taking our time just to do what we can. We hope to be in Canada in July and Vancouver Island at my wife's parents' house. And then we'll maybe jump over to Calgary. I think we're looking to live somewhere around there. So if anyone's watching, got a house for sale somewhere around Calgary, then give us a shout.
We will keep posted on all of that, and we will welcome you with open arms to the country. David, thanks for doing this.
Thank you. Good to see you.
A lot covered there. Joe, some initial reaction.
Well, it's nice. Like when I saw the press release, I like seeing change. And whether or not it's going to be optimal moving forward, I mean, that remains to be seen. But I think that the great thing is that a lot of investigation happened at the end of the last quadrennial. And at least we're moving forward with a few things in place for next season and then the seasons beyond. I think that like the residency question is such a good question, especially for someone like David who hasn't had to deal with that obstacle at all. Like it is not an advantage to have players playing in different cities across the country. Like it's hard to periodize a season and not play as much and choose to practice instead, because you need those events to get in those positions where you lost that bad game, and that's how you learn and you're ready for your bigger championships. So I'm interested to see how much he tries to encourage people to do that periodization, because you need to be one of the top 2 to get that wildcard spot at the end of the season. So you do have to play a ton. So I like what I'm seeing. I like that he wants to move forward with some change, and then we'll have to kind of just see how it all plays out.
Mike.
Well, the word that stuck with me is stakeholders. There's a lot of discussion about how to please the stakeholders. The only stakeholders are the athletes, as far as I'm concerned. So if you're bowing to sponsors and you're bowing to pressures from the association, you're bowing to pressures from whoever it happens to be, you're not getting the big picture in focus, right? So I would like to see, how do we get medals at the Olympics? That's really why we're bringing David Murdoch into the picture, right? So who cares what the stakeholders have to say? Like, listen to the athletes. That's my view on it. And if the athletes are asking to be named the Olympic team more in advance of the Olympic Games, then listen to the athletes. So I think it's important that I'm happy. David's a friend, right? So I'll start with that. But and people who work for Curling Canada, and I'm kind of a little bit on the inside with my job with Northern Ontario Curling Association, is that everyone's concerned about themselves.
Yeah.
Listen to the athletes. That's my only advice to David. And if you really want to make change that's impactful, that's in terms of medals, right? I'm not talking about anything else. Then you need to listen to someone who's got experience doing that. And David's been through that with Scottish curling, and that's one of the reasons we brought him on board. So I don't care what the stakeholders think. I care what the athletes think, right? So let's go with that. Like that to me is they're the number one stakeholder in all of this.
And to your point, you're mentioning, I think, the timing. And I think that was one thing that a lot of people read and were disappointed about, that we have been talking about the timing of the Olympics for so long. One of the humbling experiences you guys have being a journalist, watching an interview and thinking, geez, I really should have asked that. So I'll put this to you now. And Colleen likes what you said, Mike.
Well, that's good. Whatever Colleen wants, Colleen, we're good. Yeah.
The mixed doubles thing is going to be fascinating, and I'm glad we're getting Kaitlyn in here in a second. But there was that hint, that line in that press release that talked about the timing of it and whatnot. And the big question, and I didn't ask David, but I will, but I'll ask you, is, do you do those before the first four-person game or after? Because in Canada, of course, we're not allowing the athletes to, if you qualify mixed doubles, to play in the four-person game.
That's the question.
And I missed
Should
it.
you be able to play both? That's the question.
And
who cares if it's before or after if you can play both?
Right.
And in fairness, they haven't specified with mixed doubles yet. They said they're going to discuss, like, they haven't broadcasted what mixed doubles trials format will look like.
Let's look at the history of curling at the Olympics with mixed doubles. Both men's, well, I'm saying there is a mixed doubles participant who won the gold medal in the men's championship both times.
Right.
So what's the downside? That's so you know where my vote lies. It's with let them play both. And the big discussion is, would your team allow you to play mixed doubles? If your team doesn't want you to play mixed doubles as a four-person team, then that's fine. Don't play with a team that would not allow you to do so. But I don't think it's up to Curling Canada to decide whether or not they should be able to play both. It should be up to the team, the individual, the athlete. Go, Joe. You go.
Like, how does this work?
Well, but I also, we talk about timing, and the mixed doubles trials, is after the four-person trials. Why don't we put it before? Just like it is in the Olympics. So if your team is cool with you playing a massive event before this massive team event, which is the Olympic trials, then great, go do that. But have it be the same format, because if that same person is going to win both, then they should be able to do that on the road.
I guarantee you, don't guarantee, but I feel like that's exactly what's going to happen. And I hope,
I hope so.
Well, I mean, let's be frank. It was a bit of a disaster when you didn't have a mixed doubles Olympic trials in this country in the middle of the pandemic. I know that was a crazy time for everyone.
You can't really say that. But it's the fact that there was a policy in place that didn't allow both. That was a problem for me.
Sure, but
if
you didn't have it at the end of December, a month before you're supposed to be on a plane before the Olympics, that doesn't happen. I mean, the Olympic trials were in early December in Saskatoon going into that, and
that doesn't matter. That other countries name their teams that late. That's not a big deal. The big deal is that wasn't allowed to play in both. That's the problem.
Right.
That didn't matter whether it was a year ago or 6 months before or whatever. The fact that you weren't allowed to play in both, that to me is the issue.
Yeah, and the last two Olympic cycles, I mean, the four-person teams win, and then a bunch of mixed doubles teams get broken up. And these teams that have put the repetitions in, that have all of the dynamics and the experience, they get busted up, and then whoever is kind of the best of the rest. So why are we going with spare parts?
Well, let's. Kaitlyn's here, so I think we can ask Kaitlyn the tough question. Into the fire, Kaitlyn. Wonderful.
That's the champ.
Well, I'm the spare parts from 2018. It worked out okay.
Pretty good. I'll go sit down.
Yeah, just kidding.
We're going to relive 2018 and that magical time, the golden time for you and Johnny. But do you have any thoughts on what we're talking about? Because I did miss a question to David, but the timing and whether Canadian curlers should be able to play in both events, Kaitlyn.
I was very entertained just listening to you guys talking about that. I agree. I think that it'd be nice for the athletes to make that choice for themselves. I do think that the mixed doubles trials should be before the 4-person trials, and it should be up to the athletes to decide. I think it'd be so neat for curlers to have a chance to win 2 medals like some of the other sports. That'd be really awesome for whoever would get to do that. And I think it'd be great for curling to be able to say, like, these are your athletes, and you can market at them well in advance of the Olympics, because I'd say curling kind of lacks that leading into the games.
Isn't that a great point? When you're running up so close, I think curlers are some of the last to be named to the team. You're missing that runway of marketing opportunities to that point. Do I spy a 2018 Pyeongchang pillow in the background there?
Yeah. Yes, you do.
Kaitlyn, I'm looking. We're seeing the video and seeing the photos from that venue, and there's a lot welling up for me. I wonder what it's like for you.
Yes, it's pretty neat to see the mixed doubles world championships going on at the venue we played in, and it brings back a lot of memories. It was such a great facility, and yeah, we had such a wonderful full time and in that venue, and lots of great memories. That's for sure.
Joe and Mike, feel free to jump in.
There are so. I mean, the mixed doubles event. I think as a broadcaster, first of all, it was super entertaining. Mm. That was amazing. My first real experience. So we commentated on the trials as well. But the Olympics just kind of got the whole scale of what it means to the other countries that were involved. And Kaitlyn, you can speak maybe to you played the Swiss team in the final. How many they won? They had won like, I don't know how many of the previous world championships. So it's a big deal in a lot of the other countries, isn't it? And the fact that, and I'm not saying this in any way that's derogatory, but you and John went there and won the gold medal as 2 extremely talented athletes, but you have all these dedicated athletes to that discipline. And we're seeing it, the discipline has grown so much since those games. You can speak to maybe how much it means to the other countries that we really maybe don't appreciate as well as we should in Canada.
Well, mixed doubles is huge around the world. And as you saw at the last Olympics, Italy won. And I don't think many people would have predicted that, which I think is so great for curling, that you're having all these different nations to cheer for. And for us going in, honestly, we didn't know what to expect. All the teams we were playing against had so much mixed doubles experience. But what we relied on was our big game experience. We had been to the Olympics before. We had played in a lot of really big championships. So we just kind of leaned into that. But I think now you're seeing a whole range of specialists who only play mixed doubles, and now some, I guess, multi-sport athletes playing. So it's really difficult. And when we went, obviously my goal was to try and win an Olympic medal for Canada, but I really wanted to showcase the interesting dynamic of mixed doubles and showcase the sport, especially to Canadian fans, because they hadn't seen it around very much. So we just wanted to show how much fun we were having and our passion and love of the game.
And that all came through. Joe, I don't want to put you on the spot, but anything coming up for you in this conversation?
Well, I mean, for me, I'm remembering watching that final. Like, we were in the stands. The Olympics the competition for us hadn't started yet. And like, I was just thinking how crazy it must have been for you in that moment. I mean, you played a little bit with John, I think, in a couple Continental Cups, and you played in a gold medal game and won that gold medal with your 4-person team. But just being out there, it's so lonely and quiet in the discipline. And I just you remember what was going through your head playing in that game, because I remember even right now, like, the hair on my arms is standing up. I was just thinking, like, this is crazy. The amount of pressure and the nerves that must be coming into play. Like, do you remember how it felt? Like, can you put yourself back in that moment?
Well, I remember you and your teammates there watching, and that was really nice to have that support. Thank you. We really appreciated that. But I struggled in the semifinal game, and I really just wanted to make sure that going into the final, I stayed present and I enjoyed the moment. At the end of the day, after winning that semi, we knew we were coming home with the medal. So I just really wanted to soak it all in and enjoy the crowd, enjoy having our families there, and just be present. And I felt like that was a huge goal that I accomplished because I had so much fun in that last game. And after the first couple shots, I felt no nerves and just really tried to go after it.
It was such a magical journey that you were all on, and the roller coaster of emotions through it all with your family there was so cool. A fact check from producer Soph. That is a Beijing pillow, I believe.
Yes. It does say Beijing on it. So.
She's been to so many Olympics, it's hard to keep track.
Which one was it? I recall in the wake of that win, all of the excitement, Kaitlyn, around the mixed doubles game in this country. And I posed this question ahead of Worlds to curling fans about whether they felt it in this country in particular has evolved in the way maybe we thought it would, in the way you and Johnny were such advocates for the game then. What's your sense on the evolution of mixed doubles in the country? Is it where you thought it would be 5 years removed from your Olympic gold?
That's a good question. I think it's improving. I do think that there's now the Slam series. There's a lot more events to play in. If you want to play, there's a mixed doubles event probably almost every weekend, whether it's a big event or a smaller one in different provinces. But I think right now it still needs more television coverage. It still needs more sponsorship money involved. And I think that's the only way that we're going to get it to grow, is getting it put on TV. And that's the only way fans are going to be able to really engage more with their favorite athletes and favorite teams.
To that point, Mike, I'll put this to you. The World Championship mixed doubles is not on television in Canada.
Right. And the network we work for, we don't have the rights to that. So there's only one network that has the rights to that. And I think it's a shame that mixed doubles doesn't get a higher profile. I mean, when I think back to there's two great memories from Kaitlyn and John's run. One was when Kaitlyn, you mentioned the semifinals where you were struggling a bit, and there was such for me, it was like a pivotal discussion at the fourth end break with Colleen and John Morris, and obviously you weren't you were focusing on other things, but basically the conversation was, this is, things are not going that great. What's going on? And John's reply was, and I'm going to paraphrase a little bit, but like, Colleen, this is mixed doubles. Anything can happen in the next four ends. We just got to keep making our shots and stay patient. And it was one of the great moments of those Olympic Games for me. And when I think of mixed doubles and the coverage that it deserves in this country, I keep going back to the feeling after you guys won your gold medal. The first game we broadcast after that was Kevin Cooey playing against Joel Returnaz, and Amos Mozana was throwing last rocks, and it's all kind of ties in the mixed doubles. They blanked the first three ends, and I was losing my mind. I was so bored after watching mixed doubles for how many days when you guys are on your way to the Olympic. And after about the middle of the fourth end, I said, I forget, it was Joan and Bruce. I was like, this is so boring. I actually think I said that on air compared to what the mixed doubles is so exciting. Yeah. And I wish there was more primetime coverage or full network coverage of the mixed doubles game. Joanne and I, we covered that for CBC. That's how we first got on the air together way back a few years ago. And I think mixed doubles just deserves a much bigger platform than it's got. Just to your point, Kaitlyn, where it'd be nice to find a sponsor who just embraces the sport and loves it like all of us who cover the game do. I think it's just so exciting, and the best part of it is you just get introduced to a whole new group of stars, right? Like look at Stefani Constantini and Amos Mozana. They are now the face of Milan Cortina Olympics. Right. It's going to be so great. It's going to be so great in Italy. Curling's going to have this huge profile. Not just because, but because of their performance. Curling's going to be on a whole new level when we go over there. It's going to be great.
Colleen says Mike's on fire. Don't get in the way of Mike.
I love curling. Don't we all love curling? Come on.
We all
Come
love
on.
curling.
Can feel the passion.
Kaitlyn, did you get a chance to hear any? We'll let you go after this. Always grateful to have you on the show and wonderful to see you. Did you hear any of David's comments or maybe some reaction just to some of the changes we all saw and are absorbing still?
I caught the kind of the tail end of the interview with David, and was very surprised when I heard that he was hired at first. I didn't know he was in the running for that, but I think it's great. We have some new blood, new energy, new perspective brought into curling in Canada, and our team and lots of other teams had a good chat with him at the Players' Championship in Toronto last week, and we're really excited to try and figure out how we can be the best. And I think he's got lots of great ideas, so hopefully he's allowed to run with a few of them and we can embrace the change. It's just really difficult to understand him sometimes, so you have to be really focused on that accent.
we need a translator.
We do need a translator. Yeah.
Pay attention.
Yes.
Two-time Olympic champion Kaitlyn Laws. Wonderful to see you. Thank you for making time for us.
Nice to see you guys. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Kaitlyn. We got to wrap up because I'm headed over to the Blue Jays game right after this.
You're busy.
I can't believe this is it for another season of that curling show. And so special to have you here, Mike, and you here, Joe, and obviously Colleen is right here with us.
Thank you for having us. And we have really big shoes to fill with Colleen. I feel like we should have been more prepared. Joe, do you not think that? Colleen,
I needed like the in-service. I needed
she had
the
whiteboards and stuff,
I mean,
right?
I should have been standing, like it wasn't the same energy. Colleen, I'm sorry. I need a debrief. I'll call you right away here. Thank you for having us.
You both did great. Maybe quickly some closing thoughts on, Mike, you're headed to Regina shortly too for the Slam. I know that. But as we wind down this season, maybe just some quick notes, the first year of a quadrennial, Joe.
Oh gosh. I think internationally curling is in a great place. I think Canada is going to continue to feel that heat, the expectation, and managing that with the reality of teams coming together, and especially on the women's side. I know it's a big deal for both the mom and the dad, but when kids come into the world, that's huge. And trying to manage that new side of life and competing at a high level is I remember that first season with the baby was really, really hard. So sending all my love to all the women out there and all the teams that are managing tiny humans coming into the world, who've already come into the world. Just excited to see where everything goes moving forward. See the mixed doubles super series hopefully continue to grow, as you were saying, Mike. And hopefully everyone takes a month or two off though this summer and enjoys it. Watches some baseball.
Yes, exactly. Mike, to you.
Well, that's all it is. It's only a month or two before we get back at it, right? So that's kind of the scary part. But I think to Joanne's point, it's internationally curling is stronger than it's ever been. The challenge for me, for Dave, is that the expectations in Canada maybe have to be adjusted a little bit. I mean, Joel Return, Amos Malzaner and Stefania Constantini winning the gold medal was like a shock. But hey, turns out they're pretty good curlers. Look what Joel Returnas has done. Right. Even Stefania Constantini, what she's done. She made the playoffs at the Worlds this year. They were the youngest team at the Women's Worlds, by the way, in Sweden. So, you look how good they are and how great hosts they're going to be in 3 years. So, Canada's got a lot of work to do, but it's not that daunting of a task. We have an unbelievable amount of talent in this country, and there's nothing but great things for our sport moving forward. I think I'm very excited for the next 3 years and things moving on. But listen, curling's in a great spot, and actually the more international success, the better it is for the sport as a whole. That's the way I look at it. And I think once curlers kind of embrace that, or Canadian viewers embrace that, which they have already, to be honest. I mean, teams like Nadine and Mowat and Anna Hasselborg and Stefania Constantini, they're all and Fujisawa. Like look at these teams who are already so popular over here. Yep. Curling's in a great spot, so I'm excited for the future.
Let's end it on a positive note. Joe, Mike, so wonderful to share this space with you. Of course, we do this for the curling fans. That's why we're still here. So to all the fans that have been here from the beginning or joining us for the last show, thank you. Of course, producer Soph, and of course, to my pal, Colleen, I love you tons. And that's a wrap. Another season of That Curling Show. So thank you, everyone. And we will see you next year.
Curling now enters the Sports Weekend spotlight.
1963, when they took the Brier to Brandon.
Hi, everybody. I'm Don Whitman with Don Duguid, two-time world champion.
Rebel Eagle, take the game.
Not a question about it. Right on the nose. It never wavers.
A little bit of curling history for you.
High drama, high intensity.